Yesterday, I was at the Cathedral of the Incarnation in Garden City because it was a confirmation and reception service, and we had 4 candidates for confirmation and 2 to be received. And it was a wonderful service, and Bishop Provenzano gave the sermon. And he reflected on his own confirmation. He remembered that at that service, the bishop said that they were soldiers for Christ. Soldiers going out for Jesus into the world. And he said even as a teen, it didn't sit well with him. That imagery didn't rest well with him because it was the 60s and the Vietnam War was accelerating, and he said he had an older brother who had just joined the Marines. The idea of being a soldier for the gospel didn't seem quite right. And he said he grappled with that imagery for a very, very long time. In fact, the whole church has struggled with that in recent times. Hymns like stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross." I don't know the last time we sang that. What's the other one, Father? Onward, Christian soldiers. When I was in high school, it was a Roman Catholic all-girls school, we used to sing, the army of youth flying the standard of truth, we're fighting for Christ our Lord, heads lifted high, Catholic action or cry, and the cross our only sword. We were going into battle. And the fact is that even though we don't want to see the church or the people that are the church, the disciples, those who follow Jesus, as going into battle, because we associate that maybe with imperialism, with the ways in which the church in history have forced religion on different people. There is some truth about who we are called to be in the world. Because the world is a murky, dangerous place at times. And if we are going to live out the Christian life, sometimes we have to be like soldiers, ready to take on causes, ready to be self-sacrificing, ready to go through the mud and the muck, ready to stand up for truth. There's another image that is very connected to what our relationship is with God and with each other as we do the work of discipleship. It runs right through the Bible, both the Hebrew scriptures and the New Testament. It is that of sheep and the shepherd. It's from the very beginning, from our story of Genesis, Adam and Eve, their son Abel, according to the Bible, was a keeper of sheep. We have Abraham, who had his herd or flock of sheep. We have Moses, who was watching his father-in-law's sheep when he saw the burning bush. King David was watching his father's sheep when the prophet Samuel came to anoint him as the next king of Israel. The prophets talked about shepherds and sheep. Shepherds being the leaders, sheep being God's people. In our story of Jesus' birth, we have the shepherds coming to visit the baby Jesus. And certainly, as Jesus and his disciples walked those dusty streets in Palestine, as he ministered to the people around him, they would have seen the sheep and the shepherds on the hillside, and perhaps some of the very crowds that Jesus preached to, and the people that he healed I'm sure some of them were shepherds themselves. So when Jesus uses this imagery in the lesson we've just heard, the gospel story, it would not be a strange thing for the people to hear. But maybe it didn't sit well with them either. Because when they think of leaders as shepherds, they didn't have good examples of that. They had leaders who had led them astray, leaders that ruled in such a way that the poor were neglected, leaders who looked out for themselves, leaders who they blamed for what had become of Israel, a people ruled by another country, another government. And perhaps that is why Jesus doesn't say, I am like a shepherd. He says, I am the good shepherd. He puts himself in a class on his own. I am the good shepherd. And then he tells why he can be seen as a good shepherd. It's not a job for Jesus. He's not hired into that position. It's his family business. His father is also the good shepherd. We love Psalm 23, the psalm that speaks of God as the shepherd who walks with us through the valleys and the shadows, as the shepherd who is with us and leads us to pastures and beside still waters, as a shepherd who has everlasting life ready for us at the time of death. And this is the same promise Jesus now makes. I am the good shepherd because I am offering abundant life. I am the good shepherd because I will do anything for my sheep. I will lay down my life to protect my sheep. And we know that he does. I am the good shepherd because I love my sheep. I know every single one by name, Jesus says. This is not just a job that I'm doing for myself. I do it because, as John tells us earlier in the gospel, God so loved the world. And I am the good shepherd because I don't only see and love and attend and call those of you who are right here in front of me. I have sheep elsewhere. It's the Samaritan woman. It's the leper. It's the widow. It's the little children. It's the Roman soldier. Jesus' sheep includes people who are very different from his disciples. Jesus' sheep were not only those who lived during his time. Jesus' sheep include us today and will include all of God's people in the future. I am the good shepherd. But just as at confirmation, the confirmants and those who were received and the congregation heard that the sheep are sent out into that pasture, they are not to remain in the fold. Just as at each service, we come to be strengthened and to be nourished and then sent out into the pasture. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, says that he goes with us. In fact, just like in Psalm 23, goodness and mercy pursues us. Just think of that image. Doesn't matter what we're out there doing. Goodness and mercy is following us. the Good Shepherd is with us. Is with us as we listen to his voice. And if in this world where we're getting messages from so many different people and places, if we want to know what the voice of the Good Shepherd sounds like, listen to the voice that gathers people together rather than scatters them. Jesus says the hired hand runs away and scatters the sheep. Jesus gathers the sheep. When we go out to do God's work, that is the work of welcoming others, that is the work of unity, that is the work of building up the church, then we are doing the work of the Good Shepherd. So whether soldier or sheep, we follow Jesus and listen to what Jesus would have us do. Amen. Amen.